Good afternoon, and welcome to WASA Distance Education. My name is Greg Weaver, and this is ENG3C, Grade 11 College Prep English. I'd like to welcome everyone listening across the north today at home, your learning center, or on Bell Express View. To call and join our class, you can call 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017 or 2983 in the Sioux Lookout, Lac Sioux, or Dryden area. I'd like to welcome everyone back to class today. I hope everyone's having a good week. Quick reminder that WASA will be closed on Friday as well as Monday for Easter. If we're closed Friday for Good Friday and Monday for Easter Monday. So we only have 3 classes left. Also, I will probably be traveling next Thursday. I will be going on a community visit, I believe. So I've class may have been canceled on Thursday, but we should have everything done before that anyways. But I'll let you know that either tomorrow or when we come back from the break on Tuesday. So we're picking up where we left off yesterday, and we started looking at Unit 4, and we started our first one, which is Lesson 16. And we were looking at figurative devices. And we had worked through them. We got as far as key question 20, and we read through the support question and key question 20. And so we're going to go back. So we're going back. We're going to work through the support question first. Then we are going to and we're going to work through the key question. We'll get started with lesson 17. So you want to determine which of these. So we're 10 sentences here for the support question. It's on page 6 of unit number 4. Of these 10 phrases, you have to identify which of the poetic device or turns apply to them. Now, we looked at 8 different types of poetic devices. We looked at metaphors, similes, alliteration, hyperbole, which we looked at back in Unit 3, as well as onomatopoeia, the rhyme scheme, personification, and repetition. You can find those on page 3 of your unit. So we're going to try and answer what these are. So first one, all his hopes were hands. So what's that? All his hopes were hands. Well, it looks like they're comparing hopes to hands. Now, those doesn't make not really normal comparison. So right there, because it's some kind of comparison, we know it's either going to be a simile or a metaphor. Now, since we don't have any there's no words such as like or as for a simile, we know this is going to be a metaphor. So B, and remember we talked about this little slash in the middle of the line tells us that when this is actually first written, this was 2 separate lines that they combined into one in order to just for the sake of this sentence. So this one says, close like confessionals they thread, loud noons of cities. So we see it says, close like confessionals they thread. So because we see something there, it says closed like confessionals. No, you have another comparison here. Because it uses like, it could use as well. This is going to be a simile. So C says, I never look upon the sea, and hear its waves sighing. So it says that here's the waves sighing. Waves can't sigh. That's a human characteristic, a human quality. So since they gave a human quality to an inanimate object, something that's not human, we say that is then becomes an example of personification. Part D is seashells by the seashore. So that's an example of alliteration. Another example would be how much wood could a woodchuck chuck? Woodchuck could chuck wood. Alliteration is that one. Nature that day, a woman was in weakness. So this is a metaphor because you're comparing nature to woman without using like or as. You could also say it's also an example of personification because saying that nature is like a woman and a woman in weakness. That whole together there becomes personification. F says she must have phoned him a million times. You can't actually call someone a million times. That's an example of hyperbole. G says, once upon a time I used to be the patriarch Abraham's pet flea. So that's an example. So it is personification. Because the flea is saying he used to be someone's pet. And saying I. Because it says I, it's a personification. Next one, H says, and stepping stones like black molars sunk in the ford. So we've stepping stones and black molars. There's a comparison. And since we have like, we know it's going to be a simile. And then we have I, which says, ford, O'Cabo River. Ford, O'Cabo River in the dark. That's symbol of repetition. Ford. Ford, O'Cabo River. So it's repetition. And our last one is clang, clang, clang goes the trolley. So this is two. First is it's repetition. Clang, clang, clang. And it's also an onomatopoeia because clang, clang, clang is describing the sound that it makes. So it's an onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. Now you can find all those suggested answers back on page 40 at the very end of unit number 4. If you do have any questions with those, be sure to let me know, and I will answer them. And I can always work through some of the answers with you again if you're not sure how it got to that answer. But we're going to quickly look at key question 20 before we get started on lesson 17. So this says a probe analysis. So you want to identify 4 poetic devices that the authors. So identify simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, onomatopoeia, hyperbole, the rhyme scheme. Identify 4 of those. Now you can identify 4 similes. 4 different types are needed. So if you want to, you can just underline those right in your unit and figure out exactly what they are. Then you want to, once you've found those 4, you want to write down and make sure you explain which ones they are. And then you want to do a bit more depth or a bit more explanation on 2 of those 4. So you can look at see if I can example of a simile. We'll explain how that simile adds meaning, how does it contribute to the poem and how effective it is. So for those 2 examples, I'm only expecting probably 3 or 4 sentences. I'm not expecting a whole lot. But I want you just to try and identify 4 of them. From those 4, choose 2 to explain a bit more. So read this over again, and then we'll see what we can identify. So as all day the narrow shaft received us. Everyone came out sweating and gasping for air. And what old man collapsed upon a stair, I thought. The fact that it stood so long is no guarantee it will stand today. But I went in anyway. When I heard I was halfway up along, a low rumbling like echo of ancient stones. First straying to their place, I thought, we have made this. We have made this. I scrambled out into the scandalous sun and saw the desert with an hourglass we had forgotten to invert. A tasseled camel falling to his knees, the river filling the great water clock of earth. So as we read through this, one thing that jumped out to me right away is it says, we have made this. We have made this. So that's an example right there of repetition. So we have made this. We have made this. That's repetition. So right below that, the scandalous sun. Well, scandalous is a human emotion. So right there, scandalous sun would be personification. So we have 2 of 4 identified right away, just from those lines there. We have another right below that. We have a metaphor where it says the desert was an hourglass. It's a metaphor. So far we have 3 right there. So you're looking for, we have repetition, personification, metaphors. So we can't do anything. There's no rhyme schemes. You can't use that one. So you're looking for simile, hyperbole, onomatopoeia, we put the ones we could, each ones to try and find. So I'll leave it to you to try and find those ones. And if you can't find if you somehow you can't find a fourth one, then you could identify another one you've already identified as a uh, again, this was a second metaphor or a second repetition. But I prefer if you only did that at the very last resort if you couldn't find a fourth type in that. So that's where we will move on from. That's key question 20. You have to identify and then write and explain two of them before you identify. The marking scheme for that is on the next page. It's worth 20 marks. It only shows 15 there, but the paragraphs used to explain it is doubled up. So it's 5, 10, and then 5 marks respectively. It is into key question 17. So this is poetry part 2. So it says, the goal for this lesson is look at 3 different poetic forms. So the first one we looked at poetic devices. Now we're going to look at poetic forms. So we're going to look at, in more detail, we're going to look at haikus. We're going to look at cinquains. And then finally, we're going to look at ballads. Now, each one of these 3 types of poetry have a very set and specific style. And we'll look at those a bit more detail. The first one we'll look at is the haiku. So a haiku is a Japanese poem. It was first written in Japan. It's become popular around the world since then, but it originated in Japan. It has a very set way of being written if it's going to be a proper haiku. And it's based on syllable counts. So if you're not sure what a syllable is, that is a sound that a word makes. So depending on how many sounds a word has, depends on how many syllables are in that word. So to think about that, so you put your hand just under your chin so it's almost touching, but not quite. And every time that your hand touches your bottom of your chin, touches your hand, that's a syllable. So, if we say the word syllable, there's 3 sounds. Syllable. Your chin will hit your hand 3 times saying that word. So that's your example. What is a syllable? So the traditional form has 17 of those syllables broken into the following manner. There's 5 syllables in the first line. There are 7 in the second line, and then there is 5 in the third line. Now, because the Japanese language is a language with little rhythm, or little rhyme, the haiku does not have a rhyme scheme. Now, the most common topic is nature. Traditional ones are written about nature. So we have here, we have our first one. And we have three total. The first one says, on the tundra bleak, a white king falls. Bloody deed, the rifleman blinks. So without just reading that, we know that this is, and using the title as well as what happened in the novel, we know that this is about a hunter shooting a polar bear. And we want to count the syllables. Count the syllables. It says, on a tundra bleak. That's our 5 syllables. On a tundra is 2 syllables, and bleak is 1. A white king falls. Bloody deed. So all those words are all 1 syllable, except for the word bloody. In which case that is 2. And then the rifleman blinks. So rifleman is 3 syllables, and the and blinks are 1 each. So it fits our 5-7-5 requirement. And it's based on nature. So our second one is called bicycle race. And it goes 20 moving pastels. Smeared across a page of asphalt. So that is this second one. Now this one is not precisely a haiku. It says 20 moving pastels. So we have 7 syllables in our first line. So right away we know this will not be a proper haiku. Smeared is just 2 syllables. Smeared across is only 2 syllables. So if smeared is 2, across is 2. So smeared across is 2 syllables. It's 4 syllables total instead of 7. And then a page of asphalt. So we have 6 syllables in our third line. So we have 7, 6, and 7, 4, and 6. So it's still 17 syllables. It's just they're put in the wrong order. And once again, this is not so much built around nature. Instead, it focuses on an activity that's occurring. And then our last one is shadows. And it says, in the setting sun, the players' shadows converse on a frozen pond. So, a bit different than our last one we just looked at. And it is our proper cue. In the setting sun is 5. The players' shadows converse. So players, shadows, and converse are 2 syllables each, plus the is 1 syllable 7. On a frozen pond. So this is our traditional haiku format. and it deals with nature. So as you can see, not all haikus follow the traditional syllabic pattern. What they do have in common, however, is a simplicity of form and the ability to create a focused mental picture in the reader's minds. Our last one, our second type project is a cinquain. So this is a 5-line poem with a fixed syllable count. So once again, we're using syllables, but this is the format is 2-4-6-8-2. So 2 syllables in the first line, 4 in the second, 6 in the third, 8 in the fourth, and then back to 2 in the fifth. And it's based off of haiku, but it is normally about the same topic and how a topic transforms. So the first one we have is I watch from my window. A tearful little toad becomes a garter snake's lunch, wart by wart. So depending on if you taken if you attempted the ENG3E course before, you notice this is different than we looked at before. Or if you took grade 9 or 10 English instead of doing PLAR, you notice this is a bit different form than we looked at for cinquains there as well, but it still follows the same format. There's 2 syllables in the first one. I watch, 4 in the second, from my window. A tearful little toad is 6. Becomes a garter snake's lunch, wart by wart. So that is one example. Another one you have here is called Shortly Ever After. It says she dusts framed photographs, the wedding, the babies, placing them just so, turning him face down. So once again, the right format. And then finally, our last one is called Flower. So that you become opens out to me, so that I become the sun, the cool rain. That one's not quite a cinquain. It's missing the first little bit, but it's in the same style. Now, there is another form of cinquain that poets can use as well. It too has 5 lines, but doesn't rely on a syllabic pattern. Instead, the lines are made up of different types of words. So the first line is a noun, followed by a second line made up of 2 adjectives that describe that noun. The third line is a series of 3 verbs that the noun does. Fourthly, the fourth word phrase that describes a noun. And then formatted to another noun. This can be the original noun, a synonym, or even an antonym. So, examples: the gym, smelly, loud, sweating, running, exercising. I should go today, torture chamber. So as you can see, the poet tries to make a statement with his or her word choice. And this example, it's clearly read that the poet is ambiguous with the gym. He likes to go, but not so much. So, and that's our second one. Our third form we're going to look at is ballads. So it says ballads are narrative poems. That is, they tell a story. For this reason, Ballads often seem easier to read and understand than the symbolic poetry that one imagines when one imagines poetry. Ballads almost always rhyme together as well. So the wickedness ballads are as quatrains. It means there's 4-line verses that rhyme. The rhyme scheme varies, but normally it's either A, so the first 3 lines rhyme together, and the 4th line doesn't, or is A, so the first 2 and the last 2 lines rhyme together. Then you can start a new rhyme scheme on the next stanza or next paragraph. So, recall from lesson 16, the rhyme scheme is a pattern of the rhyme. In examples of all of the lines are marked A rhyme, all lines are marked B rhyme. So many rock songs and even pop songs are written as ballads. The poem that you're about to read is such an example. It is a song lyric by Bruce Springsteen. We'll come back to song lyrics again when we get to lesson 20, because we'll look at those again. But this one, I'll read it out loud, and we'll identify the rhyme scheme afterwards. So it said, it's called Wreck on the Highway. So last night I was out driving, coming home at the end of the working day. I was riding along through a drizzly rain on a third stretch of a country 2-lane. I came upon a wreck on the highway. So we have the first stanza. We have driving, doesn't have anything else in the stanza, but we have day, highway, rain, lane. So we would phrase this as A, B, C, C, B. Because line A, driving rhymes with nothing. And rain and lane rhymes, so that's our mere C one. And so our next line is, there was blood and glass all over, and there was no one there but me. As rain tumbled down and cold, I see a young man lying by the side of the road. He said, "Mister, will you help me, please?" And the ambulance finally came and took him into Riverside. I watched as they drove him away. I thought of the girlfriend of the young wife, and a state trooper knocked in the middle of the night. They say a baby died in a wreck on the highway. Sometimes I sit up in the darkness and watch my baby as she sleeps. I climb in bed and I hold her tight, just lay there awake in the middle of the night, thinking about the wreck on the highway. So we notice as we keep going that the rhyme scheme isn't always the same. So our second stanza, blood and glass all over, no one there but me, traveled down hard and cold side of the road. Please. And then help me, please. So any ones that rhyme in our second stanza is cold and road. Even that's not a really good rhyme, but it still goes together. Our third one is riverside, away, wife, night, highway. So away and highway rhyme, but that's it. And then stay up in the darkness, watch she sleeps, or hold her tight middle of the night. Think about the wreck on the highway. So we have tight and night rhyme, and that's it. So not everything rhymes together, but there's always at least 2 lines that rhyme together in this ballad. And that will lead us into our next little bit. To our support questions. So, for each of the poems that we just read, record your answers to the following question. Your answers should be in sentences and recorded in your notebook. This is practice to help you with key question 21. I'll look at that in a little bit. But it says for each of the poem, do that. So, how does this poem follow the convention of its form? How does this poem differ from the original format, and why is the chosen form particularly appropriate for the context of this poem? So the answers at the back of your novel only have this one for each. So they're doing all of them just one for each. They have suggested answers for shadows, slow squeeze, and wreck on the highway. So they have examples for the ballad here. Is in the back does have a suggested answer at the back. And then slow squeeze has one. And then shadows. So those are ones that I highlighted that actually have suggested answers. So you can find those in the back. I'll read them over now. If you want to try and challenge yourself with the other ones, that's fine. But you have to just double check on your own because there is no suggested answers in the unit itself. So for the first one, for shadows, the first question you were asked, does this poem follow the conventions? So look at that. We say in Setting Sun, the players and shadows converse on a frozen pond. So it follows it perfectly. It also looks based on nature, which is what it wants too. Second one is, does it deviate or change from the traditional form? In this case, no, it doesn't. It's perfect. And our third question is, why is this chosen form particularly appropriate for the content? So why does it fit so well? And in this case, it just is a basic meditation on people playing hockey, which follows the thematic pattern of a haiku. It creates a snapshot in the natural setting. Next one is slow squeeze, and this is a sing cane type. So I watch from a window from a cheerful little toe becomes a garter snake's lunch, wart by wart. So this is 5 lines. I have the right syllables, so it meets that. It does a deeper instructional form. Nope, it goes along perfectly with what it says. And in terms of the theme, this shows the haiku influence because it is about nature and the reality of the natural world. So it goes that one. The last one is we just read the ballad, which is Wreck on the Highway. So how is this? Well, it's similar to ballads, and that's narrated and tells a story. A ballad will tell a story somehow. But it doesn't have quatrains, it doesn't have the 4 lines, and it doesn't have very much of a rhyme scheme. It's a bit rhymes, but not a whole lot. And does it fit with the style? Well, kind of, because he tells us the singer, Bruce Springsteen, tells a story that could have taken place anywhere. So that leads us into key question 21. And key question 21 is looking at a poetry anthology. So you have to create your own poetry. Create a poetry anthology that has the following elements. So you need a title page. You need your name, some kind of creative title, the course goal and the date, 4 poems that demonstrate all 3 poetic formats you have learned. No, you have to write these poems. You can't just find them online. You actually have to write these poems. So it's your choice between people. You must have one poem of each type plus one that repeats. One that repeats is your choice. Or if you know another form, you may have learned somewhere else, you can use that as well. Now, the ballad you do must be a minimum of 3 stanzas. So that's for the poetry part itself, the writing. The other part is an author biography. Now, this is your name, 2 biographical details about you, a brief explanation of your experience with poetry. So it's your first time writing it. You've written a lot of it, haven't done it for a little while. This also needs to be about a paragraph. Just a little short explanation explaining why you wrote it and a bit about you as a person. So, depending on how fast you write and whether you get to this right away, I expect that this whole assignment will probably have taken you probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours or so. And you'll have, again, so each of the requirements should have its own page. So I have 3 pages. So you have all your 4 poems on one page if you want to, plus your author biography on the second page, plus your title page, for a total of 3 pages. Now, your assignment will be assessed using the rubric that's on the next page. And that rubric looks at how well do you understand the poetic formats, how well do you use your creative thinking skills when you write them, and is your spelling and grammar correct? Now, with the spelling and grammar, you'll probably already notice that the grammar rules and punctuation rules are very relaxed when it comes to poetry. What that means is that as long as I can figure out what it means and it seems like it's deliberate, you can have words that are missing punctuation, that are not capitalized, and things like that. So that is how we're assessing this. Now, we do have a bit of time left over still. So what I want to do is, if you're having a hard time just getting your head around these different types of poems and poetry, there's lots of websites out there that you can visit that have poems on them. One of the better sites I've come across is allpoetry.com. And you can search by type, you can search by content, you can search by poet. All these are organized in this site by category, but you can also just type in and search haiku, and you'll get a category for haiku, and it'll give you a list of different haikus that people have written. Just an example, just to get you going, these are poems that other people have written and published on this site. If you're looking for a ballad, which is one of most students tend to struggle with, so category for ballad, and then it's going to have a whole bunch here. Now, some of these may not go together. There may be the ballad form that we looked at, But you can also search around and Google it as well and find other examples. And the last one we had was a syncane. And there's categories here. And those are available there as well. So with that, I think that's where when our Bridget feed's having issues, it's acting up again. So I think we'll end a bit early there so we can try and get that figured out. I will talk to everyone again tomorrow. Till then, have a good day, Miigwech, and bye for now.